I thought I'd be the maid of honor. Instead, I wasn't even worthy of a real seat. At my sister's wedding, they placed me in the hallway next to the coat racks, like I was some unwanted piece of furniture. I'm Rebecca, and for 15 years I've been my family's designated scapegoat. But what happened next didn't just shock everyone at that wedding, it completely destroyed the perfect facade my family had spent decades building. Because the gift I brought wasn't just expensive, it was their financial salvation. And when I walked out with it, their entire world came crashing down. 6 months earlier, Patricia had called me with squealing excitement. "Rebecca, I'm engaged! Dave finally proposed!" I could hear the champagne cork popping in the background, the laughter of friends who'd obviously been there for the big moment. Friends I hadn't been invited to meet, despite Dave being in Patricia's life for 3 years. "That's amazing, Trish," I'd said, genuinely happy for her. "Tell me everything!" As she gushed about the proposal at some fancy restaurant downtown, I was already mentally planning. I'd help with everything: the dress shopping, venue hunting, flower arrangements. Finally, something that would bring us closer together. Finally, a chance to be the sister she'd always seemed to keep at arm's length. "So obviously you'll be my maid of honor," she said, and my heart soared. Except she didn't say that. What she actually said was, "So I'm thinking maybe 6 bridesmaids? Sarah's definitely maid of honor since we've been best friends since college." The silence stretched between us. Sarah, the girl who'd known Patricia for 4 years versus my entire lifetime. "Oh," I managed. "Of course. Sarah's perfect for that. You'll be a bridesmaid, though. I mean, if you want to be." If I wanted to be. Like it was some casual invitation to a book club, not my only sister's wedding. But I swallowed the hurt and threw myself into being the best bridesmaid anyone had ever seen. I spent my weekends driving to bridal shops, holding dress after dress while Patricia and Sarah made decisions. I researched photographers, compared catering menus, and created detailed spreadsheets for everything from seating charts to flower arrangements. The signs were there from the beginning, subtle as shadows. When Patricia needed someone to pick up the wedding favors, she called me. When the florist messed up the order, I was the one who spent my lunch break fixing it. But when it came to the fun stuff, the bachelorette party planning, the dress shopping for the actual wedding dress, the rehearsal dinner arrangements, somehow I was always too busy to be included, or they'd already handled it. "We didn't want to burden you," Mom would say when I'd find out about some wedding event after the fact. "You do so much already." 3 months before the wedding, I realized I hadn't been invited to the bachelorette party. I found out when Patricia posted photos on Instagram, 12 girls in matching pink shirts at some wine resort in Napa. Sarah had organized it naturally. When I called Patricia to ask about it, she sounded genuinely surprised. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Sarah was handling the guest list and she probably thought, I mean, you're not really friends with that group anyway, right? You would have felt left out." I would have felt left out. At my own sister's bachelorette party. "It's fine," I lied. "I had work stuff anyway." But it wasn't fine. None of it was fine. The pattern was becoming clearer with each forgotten invitation, each overlooked opinion, each time I was relegated to the background while everyone else got to be part of Patricia's special moments. The breaking point came 2 weeks before the wedding. I'd been working on something special, a gift that had taken me months to arrange. Dad had always talked about his grandfather's watch, the one he'd lost in a poker game when Patricia and I were kids. He'd mentioned it wistfully over the years, how it was the only thing he had left of his father, how stupid he'd been to gamble it away during a rough patch. I'd spent weeks tracking it down through estate sale websites and collectors. When I finally found it, the price made me wince. 3 months of my salary. But seeing the joy on Dad's face would be worth it. More than that, giving it to Patricia and Dave as a wedding gift would show everyone that I belonged in this family, that I was generous and thoughtful and worthy of love. That same week, I called Patricia to ask about the rehearsal dinner. "Oh, that," she said, her voice going oddly flat. "It's just going to be immediate family and the wedding party." "Right," I said. "What time should I be there?" Another pause. Rebecca, it's really small, like tiny. Dave's parents are paying for it and they have a strict guest limit. The pieces clicked together slowly, like a puzzle I didn't want to solve. I'm immediate family, Patricia. I know, but look, it's complicated. There just isn't room for everyone. Everyone meaning me. Don't be dramatic. You know how these things work. It's about numbers and budgets and I'm your sister. And you'll be at the wedding. That's the important part. The rehearsal dinner is just stuffy speeches and boring family stories anyway. You're not missing anything. But I was missing everything. I was missing the chance to be included, to feel like I mattered, to be treated like family instead of some distant acquaintance who happened to share DNA. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the antique watch in its beautiful vintage box. 3 months of salary. 3 months of ramen dinners and canceled plans and extra freelance work to afford something that would show my family how much they meant to me. The morning of the wedding arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. I'd spent an hour getting ready, choosing my outfit carefully. Elegant, but not attention-grabbing. Expensive enough to look appropriate, but not so flashy that anyone could accuse me of trying to upstage the bride. My phone had been silent all morning. No good morning, texts from Patricia. No see you soon, from Mom. No thanks for everything. Acknowledgments of the 6 months I'd spent helping with wedding preparations. Radio silence. I arrived at the venue, a beautiful historic mansion with manicured gardens and soaring ceilings, carrying the gift and my purse, looking around for someone to tell me where to go. The parking lot was already full, and I could see people in formal wear walking toward the entrance in chattering groups. Inside, the energy was electric. Bridesmaids in dusty rose dresses were getting touch-ups from a makeup artist in the corner. Groomsmen were adjusting boutonnieres and checking their phones. Extended family members were admiring the floral arrangements and taking photos. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they belonged, except me. I approached my cousin Jake, who was adjusting his tie near the guest book table. "Hey, where's the family staging area? Where should I put my purse?" He looked confused. "Aren't you with the bridal party? I thought you were getting ready with Patricia." "No, I started to explain, then stopped. How do you tell someone that your own sister didn't want you in her getting ready photos? "I'm just a guest today," I said instead. Jake's expression shifted to something that might have been pity. "Oh, well, I think regular guests are just supposed to wait in the main hall until seating starts." Regular guests. That's what I was to my own family. I found a corner where I could watch the organized chaos without getting in anyone's way. From there, I could see Patricia through the doorway of the bridal suite, surrounded by her 6 bridesmaids and both our mothers. She looked radiant in her dress, laughing at something Sarah was saying, while our aunt fixed a strand of hair. Mom caught sight of me and waved, then said something to Patricia. My sister glanced over and gave me a quick smile and wave before turning back to her conversation. "No, come join us. No, we saved you a spot." Just acknowledgement that I existed and was present, like I was a vendor who delivered something. 20 minutes later, a wedding coordinator with a clipboard approached me. "Are you Rebecca Martinez?" "Yes." "Perfect. I have your seating assignment right here." She consulted her clipboard, flipping through several pages. "Okay, that's odd. Let me double-check this." My stomach started to sink. Is there a problem?" No problem at all. Just wanted to make sure I had the right spot." She looked up with a bright smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "If you'll follow me." She led me through the main reception hall, past round tables draped in ivory linens and topped with elaborate centerpieces. Past the head table where Patricia and Dave would sit with their wedding party. Past the tables clearly designated for family. I could see place cards with my aunts' and uncles' names, my grandparents' spots marked with special chairs. We kept walking, through the main hall, past the bar area, past the dance floor. The coordinator's heels clicked on the marble as we headed toward what appeared to be a service corridor. "Here we are," she announced cheerfully. I stared at the setup. A single round table, clearly smaller than the others, positioned in the hallway between the main reception area and the coat check. Not even properly in the room where the wedding was taking place. The table was set for 8, and from the place cards I could see, I was seated with various plus ones and distant family friends, people who didn't really know anyone else. "This is my seat?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Table 12, she confirmed. "You'll have a lovely view of the dance floor through the archway, and you're close to the restrooms, which is always convenient." Convenient. I was seated for convenience like a coat rack or a fire extinguisher. "I think there might be a mistake," I said carefully. "I'm Rebecca Martinez, Patricia's sister." The coordinator's smile faltered slightly. "Oh, let me just—" She flipped through her pages again, checking and rechecking. "No, this is definitely right. Table 12, seat 3, Rebecca Martinez." She was trying to be kind, but I could see the discomfort in her eyes. Even this stranger could recognize that something was wrong with this picture. "Okay," I said quietly. "Thank you." As she walked away, I stood there staring at my place card. Rebecca Martinez, table 12, seat 3, in the hallway, next to the coat racks and the emergency exit sign. The ceremony was starting soon, and I needed to find my seat for that too. But first, I had to process what had just happened. My sister, my only sister, had deliberately seated me in the hallway of her wedding reception. Not with family, not with friends, not even properly in the same room as the celebration. In the hallway, like I was something to be hidden away. The tears started before I could stop them, but I blinked them back quickly. I would not cry at Patricia's wedding. I would not give anyone the satisfaction of seeing how much this hurt. Instead, I sat down in my assigned chair and placed my purse carefully on the table. The gift, that beautiful, expensive, thoughtful gift, sat in my lap, suddenly feeling heavy as a stone. From my hallway vantage point, I could see guests filing into the ceremony space. I could see my parents greeting people looking proud and happy. I could see extended family members hugging and laughing, excitement building for the main event. And none of them seemed to notice that the bride's sister was sitting alone in a corridor, banished from the actual celebration like some shameful secret. The ceremony itself was beautiful, or what I could see of it from my position at the very back. Patricia looked stunning as she walked down the aisle on Dad's arm. Dave's face lit up when he saw her, and for a moment, I felt a genuine surge of happiness for them both. But that moment was quickly overshadowed by the realization that even for the ceremony, I'd been placed in the last row, behind people I'd never met. Family members were in the front rows, wedding party obviously at the altar, close friends in the middle, and me, the sister, relegated to the cheap seats with the strangers. During the vows, when Patricia talked about how family was everything to her, how the people you love should be treasured and celebrated, I felt something crack inside my chest. When she mentioned how grateful she was for everyone who'd supported her journey to this day, I looked around at all the faces beaming back at her. None of them were looking at me. None of them seemed to remember that I'd been part of that journey too, that I'd spent months of my life and thousands of dollars trying to make this day perfect for her. After the ceremony, as guests moved toward the cocktail hour, I lingered in my back row seat. I needed a moment to collect myself, to figure out how to get through the rest of this evening with my dignity intact. "Rebecca!" Mom appeared beside me, looking flustered. "There you are. How was the ceremony? Could you see okay from back here?" "It was beautiful," I said automatically. "Good, good. Listen, I wanted to talk to you about the reception seating." Here it comes, I thought. The explanation, the apology, the acknowledgement that something had gone terribly wrong. I know the table assignments might seem a little odd, but Patricia put a lot of thought into this. She wanted to make sure you were comfortable, not stuck at some stuffy family table where you'd be bored. I stared at my mother. "She seated me in the hallway, Mom." "Oh, don't be dramatic. It's a lovely spot. Very private, great view of everything, and you'll be with some very nice people. Dave's work colleagues, some family friends. It'll be fun." Dramatic. There was that word again. The family favorite for dismissing any emotion I dared to express. "Mom, I'm her sister." "Of course you are, sweetheart, and she loves you very much. This seating arrangement doesn't change that." But it did change something. It changed everything. Mom hurried away to handle some other wedding emergency, leaving me alone with the growing realization that this wasn't an oversight or a mistake. This was intentional. Patricia had looked at the seating chart, seen my name, and decided that the hallway was where I belonged. The cocktail hour was an exercise in invisible navigation. I moved through the crowd with my drink, smiling and making small talk when approached, but mostly observing. I watched Patricia hold court near the bar, surrounded by her bridesmaids and college friends. I watched my parents beaming as they introduced Dave's family to our relatives. I watched my aunts and uncles and cousins mingling easily, part of the warm family circle that somehow didn't include me. At one point, Patricia caught my eye across the room and waved. Not a "come over here" wave, but a distant acknowledgement wave. The kind you give to an acquaintance you recognize but don't particularly want to talk to. When dinner was announced, I made my way back to table 12 in the hallway. My table mates were exactly who I'd expected. Dave's co-workers who didn't know anyone, a few family friends who'd been seated away from the main action, and a couple of plus ones who looked as confused about their placement as I felt. "How do you know the couple?" asked the woman next to me, a pleasant-looking lady in her 50s. "Patricia's my sister," I said. She looked surprised, glancing around at our hallway location. "Oh, how nice! This is such a beautiful wedding." "Yes, it is." She seemed to sense that something was off because she didn't ask any follow-up questions about my relationship with the bride. Instead, she turned to the man on her other side and started a conversation about the weather. From my hallway table, I could see into the main reception room through an archway. The head table was clearly visible, with Patricia and Dave in the center, surrounded by their wedding party. They were laughing and toasting and having the time of their lives. I could see my parents' table where they sat with Dave's parents and my grandparents. Everyone looked happy and festive, glasses raised, stories being shared. I could even see the tables full of extended family and family friends, people I'd known my whole life, all seated together in the warmth and light of the main celebration. And here I sat, in the hallway, picking at my salmon and pretending this was normal. The speeches started after dinner. Sarah gave a heartfelt maid of honor speech about friendship and loyalty, and always being there for the people you love. Dave's best man told funny stories about their college adventures and how perfect Patricia was for his friend. Dad's father of the bride speech was the hardest to listen to. He talked about watching his daughters grow up, about being proud of the women they'd become, about how family was the most important thing in the world. "Patricia has always been special," he said, his voice warm with emotion. "She has this gift for bringing people together, for making everyone feel included and loved. That's the kind of wife and partner she'll be, and that's the kind of family she and Dave will build together." The irony was suffocating. Here was Patricia being praised for making people feel included while her own sister sat alone in a hallway, excluded from the very celebration those words were describing. When Dad raised his glass for a toast to family and to the love that binds us all together, I couldn't bring myself to lift my champagne flute. I just sat there, watching everyone else celebrate the fiction of our happy, loving family. After the speeches, Patricia made her rounds to thank guests and take photos. I watched her progress through the main room, stopping at each table, hugging people, laughing and posing for pictures. She was 3 tables away from the archway when she finally glanced toward the hallway. Our eyes met, and for a moment I thought she might come over. I thought she might finally acknowledge the elephant in the room, might apologize or explain or at least pretend to care that her sister was sitting alone in a corridor. Instead, she smiled that same distant wave smile and mouthed, "Having fun?" across the space between us. Having fun. As if this was all perfectly normal. As if seating your sister in the hallway was just another quirky wedding choice. Like choosing wildflowers over roses or serving mini desserts instead of a traditional cake. I nodded and gave her a thumbs up because what else could I do? Make a scene? Cry? Demand better treatment at my sister's wedding reception? So I smiled and pretended everything was fine, just like I'd been doing my whole life. But something was crystallizing inside me as I sat there in that hallway, watching my family celebrate without me. A cold, clear understanding that this wasn't an accident or an oversight. This was a message. This was my family telling me, in the most public way possible, exactly what they thought of me. I was the sister who could be called upon to run errands and solve problems and provide free labor. But when it came to actually being included, actually being treated as an equal member of the family, I was disposable. I was hallway worthy. The gift sat heavy in my lap, wrapped in beautiful paper and tied with an expensive ribbon. Inside that box was a family heirloom worth more than most people's cars. Inside that box was 3 months of my salary and weeks of research, and the hope that maybe, finally, I could buy my way into my family's affection. But sitting there in that hallway, watching Patricia pose for photos with people who mattered more to her than I did, I began to understand something that would change everything. Love can't be bought. Respect can't be earned through good behavior and expensive gifts. And family isn't about blood. It's about who chooses to treat you like you matter. And my family had made their choice very clear. As the evening wore on and the dancing began, I remained in my hallway seat, nursing a glass of wine and watching the celebration I'd been excluded from. Couples swayed on the dance floor, children ran between tables, elderly relatives told stories and laughed at old jokes. It was beautiful. It was joyful. It was everything a wedding reception should be, and I was watching it from the outside, like a ghost haunting the edges of my own family's happiness. That's when Patricia appeared in the archway, slightly breathless from dancing, her hair a little messed up, but her smile radiant. She spotted me and walked over, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "Rebecca," she said, leaning down to give me a quick hug. "I've been meaning to come find you all night. Are you having a good time?" The question was so absurd, so completely tone-deaf, that for a moment I couldn't speak. "It's a beautiful wedding," I managed. "Thank you. Everything turned out even better than I imagined." She glanced around the hallway, as if just now noticing where we were standing. "This is a nice, quiet spot, isn't it? Perfect for someone who doesn't really like crowds." Someone who doesn't really like crowds, as if my personality preferences had anything to do with being banished to a hallway. "Patricia," I said carefully, "why am I seated out here?" Her smile faltered for just a moment before snapping back into place. "What do you mean?" "I mean, why is your sister sitting in the hallway instead of with family?" "Oh, that!" She waved her hand dismissively. "The seating was so complicated and there were so many people to accommodate. Dave's family is huge and we had to make room for everyone. Everyone except me, apparently." Her expression shifted then, becoming cooler, more guarded. "Rebecca, don't start. Please, this is my wedding day." "I'm not starting anything. I'm just asking why." "You're being dramatic again." Her voice was sharp now, cutting through the pretense of sisterly affection. "This is exactly why— Look, some people just don't fit at certain tables, okay? It's not personal." "Not personal. Being excluded from your own sister's wedding reception wasn't personal." "How is it not personal, Patricia? I'm your sister." "And you're here, aren't you? You're at my wedding. I don't know what else you want from me." What I wanted was to matter. What I wanted was to be treated like family instead of an inconvenience. What I wanted was for my sister to love me enough to want me close by on the most important day of her life. But looking at her face, irritated, defensive, completely lacking in understanding, I realized she would never give me those things. Not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want to. "You know what?" she said, her voice dropping to a hiss. "Maybe this is better. Maybe sitting out here is perfect for someone who always needs to be the center of attention, who can't just let other people have their moment." The words hit like a slap. I never asked to be the center of attention. I just asked to be included. "Same thing with you, isn't it?" She smoothed her dress and checked her reflection in a nearby mirror. "Look, I have to get back to my guests. Try to enjoy the rest of the evening, okay?" She started to walk away, then paused and looked back over her shoulder. "Oh, and Rebecca? Guess you don't count." The words were delivered with a smirk, casual and cruel, like she was commenting on the weather. Guess you don't count. 15 years of being the family scapegoat crystallized into that one sentence. 15 years of being overlooked, undervalued, and treated as less than. 15 years of hoping that if I just tried harder, gave more, sacrificed more, they would finally see me as worthy of love. Guess you don't count. Patricia disappeared back into the main reception, leaving me alone in the hallway with those words echoing in my ears. Around me, the sounds of celebration continued, laughter and music, and the clinking of glasses raised in toasts to love and family and happily ever after. But all I could hear was my sister's voice, casual and dismissive. Guess you don't count. I looked down at the gift in my lap. The beautiful wrapping paper, the expensive ribbon, the precious contents that represented months of sacrifice and research and hope. This gift that was supposed to prove my love, supposed to show how much I valued my family, supposed to maybe, finally, earn me a place at their table. Guess you don't count. That's when something inside me shifted. Something cold and clear and absolutely certain, because Patricia was wrong about one thing. I did count. I counted enough to have spent 6 months helping plan her perfect wedding. I counted enough to have sacrificed my time and money and energy for her happiness. I counted enough to have endured years of casual cruelty and deliberate exclusion while still showing up, still trying, still hoping. And I counted enough to finally understand that none of it mattered. None of it would ever matter. Because to them, I would always be the sister in the hallway, the one who didn't quite fit, the one who could be dismissed with a smirk and a cruel joke. But here's what they hadn't counted on. I was done. I was done begging for scraps of affection from people who had never valued me. I was done making excuses for their behavior and blaming myself for their rejection. I was done pretending that this was normal or acceptable or just how families work. I was done. And that gift in my lap, that expensive, thoughtful, perfect gift that was supposed to buy me love, they were about to find out exactly how much it was worth. I sat in that hallway for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, staring at the gift in my lap while Patricia's words echoed in my mind. Guess you don't count. The casual cruelty of it, delivered with that smirk, kept replaying like a broken record. But then, something clicked. A memory surfaced from 3 weeks ago when I'd overheard Mom and Dad talking in hushed, worried tones in the kitchen. I'd come by to drop off some wedding decorations I'd picked up, and they hadn't heard me come in. The second mortgage payment is due next month, Dad had been saying, his voice strained. And with Patricia's wedding expenses. We'll figure it out, Mom had replied, but she sounded exhausted. We always do. Maybe we should have been more careful about the budget. This wedding is costing more than we planned. It's Patricia's day. We couldn't say no. I know. I keep thinking about Dad's watch. If I still had that thing, we could... His voice had trailed off. That's when I'd quietly backed out of the house, my heart racing with an idea that had seemed perfect at the time. Dad's grandfather's watch, the one he'd lost in that poker game 20 years ago, the one he still talked about with regret and longing. Finding it and giving it to Patricia and Dave as a wedding gift would solve everything. It would help with their finances, it would show how much I loved my family, and it would prove that I was worthy of being included. Sitting in that hallway chair, I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I'd taken of the watch when it arrived. It was beautiful, a 1940s Patek Philippe with the original band and papers. The seller had assured me it was the exact model, down to the inscription on the back. To Robert Martinez Sr. from his loving wife, Christmas 1943. 3 months of my salary. 3 months of eating ramen and skipping social events and taking on extra freelance work. All for a gift that was supposed to change everything. Guess you don't count. My best friend Nora had texted me earlier. How's the wedding? Getting sister bonding time? I pulled up her contact and typed, I'm done with this family. She called immediately. What happened? She asked without preamble. They seated me in the hallway, I whispered, glancing around to make sure no one could hear. Literally in the hallway, Nora, next to the coat racks. What? That can't be right. It gets worse. I told her about Patricia's comment, about the months of exclusion, about finally understanding that none of this was accidental. "Oh, honey," Nora breathed. "I'm so sorry. Do you want me to come get you?" "No, I'm going to finish this on my terms." "What does that mean?" I looked down at the gift again, and for the first time all day, I smiled. It means they're about to learn what it feels like when someone who doesn't count stops participating in their life. "Rebecca, what are you planning?" "Nothing dramatic. I'm just leaving. But first, I'm taking back what's mine." I could hear the concern in her voice. "Are you sure about this? Maybe you should sleep on it. Talk to them tomorrow when emotions aren't so high." "Nora, I've been sleeping on this for 15 years. I've been making excuses for them, hoping things would change, believing that if I just tried harder or gave more, they'd finally see me as worthy of basic respect." I stood up, suddenly feeling clearer than I had all day. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent my entire adult life begging for love from people who see me as disposable. I'm done begging. "Okay," she said quietly. "Then I'm proud of you, and whatever you need, I'm here." After I hung up, I sat back down and really looked at my situation with new eyes. Here I was, holding a gift worth more than most people's cars, watching my family celebrate without me. They'd made it clear that I didn't matter enough to sit with them, to be included in their joy, to be treated as anything more than a convenient errand runner. But that gift could solve their mortgage problems. Dad had mentioned that very thing just weeks ago. And now, instead of gratitude for my sacrifice, instead of inclusion in their celebration, I'd been banished and mocked. The power dynamics were about to shift dramatically. I opened the card I'd written to go with the gift and read my own words. "To Patricia and Dave, with all my love. This belongs in the family, and I can't think of anyone who deserves it more. May it bring you the security and happiness you both deserve. Love, always, Rebecca." Love, always. From someone who apparently didn't count. I carefully tore up the card and put the pieces in my purse. Then I stood up, smoothed my dress, and picked up the gift box. Time to go. But first, I had to walk through that main reception room to get to the exit. As I moved through the archway, holding the beautifully wrapped box, several people smiled at me. "What a lovely gift," said one of Dave's aunts. "How thoughtful," added a family friend. If only they knew. I could see Patricia on the dance floor with Dave, spinning and laughing, completely absorbed in her perfect moment. Mom and Dad were at their table, talking animatedly with Dave's parents. Everyone looked so happy, so content, so completely unaware that anything was wrong. Because to them, nothing was wrong. This was exactly how they wanted things. Me in the background, invisible, grateful for whatever scraps of attention they threw my way. But as I walked toward the exit, still carrying that gift, something interesting happened. People started noticing. "Rebecca, are you leaving?" asked my cousin Jake. "Where are you going with that beautiful present?" wondered Dave's grandmother. "Is everything okay?" asked one of the bridesmaids. Their questions were getting louder, drawing more attention. I could see heads turning, conversations pausing. Even the bride and groom were starting to notice the minor commotion near the exit. "I just need some fresh air," I said to anyone who asked, but I kept walking. That's when I heard Dad's voice behind me. "Rebecca! Rebecca! Wait!" I turned to see him hurrying toward me, Mom close behind, both of them looking confused and slightly panicked. "Where are you going, sweetheart?" Dad asked, slightly out of breath. "Home," I said simply. "But the reception isn't over," Mom protested. "There's still cake and the bouquet toss and—" "I think I've seen enough," I said. They both looked down at the gift in my hands, and I could see the wheels turning. Dad especially looked pale, like he was starting to understand that something significant was happening. "Is that—" he started. "My wedding gift for Patricia and Dave?" "Yes." I held the box a little tighter. "But I've decided they don't need it after all." "Rebecca," Mom said, her voice taking on that familiar placating tone. "If this is about the seating arrangement, you're being overly sensitive. Patricia didn't mean—" Actually, she did mean it. I looked past them to where Patricia was now standing at the edge of the dance floor, watching our little scene with growing alarm. She was very clear about how she feels about me, how you all feel about me. That's not true, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. Dad, she told me I don't count, tonight, to my face, after seating me in the hallway like a piece of unwanted furniture. I could feel eyes on us now, other guests starting to notice that something was happening. And you know what? She's right. I don't count. Not to any of you. You're being dramatic, Mom said automatically, then seemed to realize how that sounded. There's that word again. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Dramatic. Every time I have a feeling, every time I point out how I'm being treated, I'm being dramatic. Well, you know what's dramatic, Mom? Spending 3 months of my salary on a gift for people who seat me in a hallway. Dad's face went white. 3 months of your salary? What's in the box, Rebecca? Mom asked quietly. I looked at both of them, these people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, who were supposed to protect me and include me and value me. Instead, they'd spent my entire life teaching me that I was worth less than my sister, that my feelings didn't matter, that I should be grateful for whatever minimal attention they threw my way. Grandpa Martinez's watch, I said. Dad actually staggered backward like I'd hit him. What? The Patek Philippe. The one you lost in that poker game 20 years ago. I tracked it down, authenticated it, bought it back. I held up the box. It was going to be my wedding gift to Patricia and Dave. I thought it would show how much I love this family. I thought it would prove that I deserve to be here. Mom's hand went to her throat. Oh my God. But sitting in that hallway tonight, listening to Patricia tell me I don't count, I realized something. I looked around at the growing crowd of wedding guests who were now openly staring at our family drama. You can't buy love. You can't earn respect from people who fundamentally don't see you as worthy of it. And I'm done trying. That's when Patricia herself appeared, pushing through the crowd with Dave right behind her. Her face was flushed, her carefully styled hair slightly disheveled from dancing. What's going on? She demanded. Why is everyone staring? Rebecca was just leaving, Mom said quickly, clearly hoping to contain the situation. With my wedding gift, I added helpfully. Patricia's eyes went to the box in my hands, then back to my face. You're taking back our gift? I'm taking back my gift, the one I spent 3 months saving for, the one I bought with money I earned while you've been planning your perfect wedding that I apparently don't deserve to actually participate in. The dance floor had basically stopped now. Most of the reception was watching our little family drama unfold. Dave looked mortified, clearly understanding that his wedding was being derailed by family dysfunction he'd probably never fully grasped before. Rebecca, please, Patricia said, and for the first time all day, she sounded genuinely upset. Don't do this. Not here. Not tonight. Don't do what? Don't react to being treated like garbage? Don't have feelings about being excluded from my own sister's wedding? Don't stand up for myself when you literally tell me I don't count? Patricia glanced around at all the watching faces, clearly realizing that her perfect wedding was becoming a public spectacle. I didn't mean, look, we can talk about this later, okay? Just put the gift down and we'll work this out. Work what out? The part where you seated me in the hallway? The part where you excluded me from every meaningful moment of your wedding planning? The part where you looked me in the eye and told me I don't count? I shook my head. There's nothing to work out, Patricia. You've made your feelings perfectly clear. Dad stepped forward, his face desperate. Rebecca, that watch. It's the only thing left of my father. It's everything to me. I know, I said quietly. That's why I bought it back. That's why I spent 3 months eating ramen and working extra hours and skipping everything fun in my life. Because I thought giving it to Patricia would show how much I love this family? Then give it to her, he pleaded. Give it to the daughter who thinks I don't count? I looked around at all of them. My parents, my sister, her new husband, all the wedding guests who were witnessing this moment. Give it to the family that seats me in hallways and calls me dramatic when I point out how cruel that is? We're not cruel, Mom protested weakly. Mom, you spent this entire evening telling me how thoughtful Patricia was being by excluding me. You made excuses for every slight, every exclusion, every moment of deliberate cruelty. You've spent my entire life teaching me that my feelings don't matter as much as Patricia's comfort. I looked directly at my sister, who was now crying. Whether from anger, frustration, or genuine remorse, I couldn't tell and no longer cared. You want to know something funny, Patricia? I actually hoped tonight would bring us closer together. I thought maybe, finally, I'd get to feel like your sister instead of some inconvenient acquaintance you have to tolerate at family events. You are my sister, she said, her voice breaking. No, I said firmly. Sisters don't treat each other like this. Sisters don't exclude each other from important moments. Sisters don't seat each other in hallways and then mock them for feeling hurt about it. I took a step toward the exit, and Patricia actually reached out as if to stop me. Wait, please. The desperation in her voice made me pause. For just a moment, I wondered if she was finally understanding what she'd done, if she was ready to genuinely apologize and try to make things right. The watch, she said, her eyes fixed on the box. Dad needs that watch. The mortgage payments? And there it was. Not concern for me, not remorse for how she'd treated me, not love or understanding or any desire to repair our relationship. Just worry about what my leaving would cost them financially. I actually smiled then, a cold, clear smile that felt like the first honest expression I'd worn all day. You know what the beautiful thing about not counting is? I asked. It means my choices don't have to count toward your benefit anymore. I turned and walked toward the exit, and this time when Patricia called after me, I didn't stop. The last thing I heard as I left my sister's wedding reception was Dad's voice, cracked and desperate. Rebecca, please, we can fix this. We need that watch. Need, not want. Need. They needed what I could give them. They just didn't need me. I drove home in a strange state of calm that I hadn't felt in years, maybe decades. For the first time in my adult life, I'd stopped trying to earn love from people who were determined not to give it. I'd stopped making excuses for inexcusable behavior. I'd stopped pretending that being treated badly was somehow my fault. My phone started ringing before I even got out of the parking lot. Dad first, then Mom, then Patricia. I let them all go to voicemail. Then the texts started. Dad, please come back. We can talk about this. Mom, you're breaking your father's heart. Patricia, I'm sorry about the seating. Please bring the watch back. Sorry about the seating. Not sorry for excluding me. Not sorry for the months of casual cruelty. Not sorry for telling me I didn't count. Sorry about the seating, like it was a simple mistake rather than the culmination of years of deliberate dismissal. When I got home, I sat on my couch, still wearing my wedding guest dress, still holding that beautifully wrapped box, and I called Nora back. How do you feel? She asked. I thought about it for a moment, really taking inventory of my emotional state. Free, I said, surprising myself with the answer. I feel free. Are you going to give them the watch? I looked down at the box, thinking about Dad's stricken face, about the mortgage payments, about the fact that this one gift could solve their financial problems. No, I said, I'm not. What are you going to do with it? I don't know yet. Maybe I'll sell it and take a vacation somewhere beautiful. Maybe I'll keep it and start wearing it myself. Maybe I'll give it to someone who actually values me. I set the box on my coffee table. But I'm not giving it to people who think I don't count. The calls and texts continued throughout the night. By morning, I had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The tone evolved from pleading to angry to desperate and back to pleading again. The voicemails were particularly illuminating. Dad, Rebecca, I'm begging you. That watch is worth more than our house. Please, we can work through the family stuff, but I need that watch. Mom, this is so unlike you. You've always been the reasonable one, the one who keeps the family together. Don't let one bad night destroy everything. Patricia, I know I messed up with the seating, okay? I admit it, but taking back the gift is going too far. You're being vindictive. Vindictive? for refusing to give an expensive gift to people who had just publicly humiliated me. But it was the text from my cousin Jake that really drove the point home. "Hey, I heard what happened at the wedding. Just wanted you to know that a lot of us noticed how they treated you. It wasn't right. Good for you for standing up for yourself." Other family members started reaching out over the next few days. My Aunt Sarah, Dad's sister, called to tell me she'd always wondered why I seemed so distant at family gatherings, and now she understood. Dave's brother sent a message saying he'd been uncomfortable watching the family dynamics all evening. Even some of Patricia's friends reached out. Sarah, the maid of honor, sent a carefully worded text. "I don't know all the details, but I hope you're okay." The seating thing seemed really weird to everyone. Everyone had noticed. Everyone had seen how I was being treated, but for years they'd all just accepted it. The same way I had. The turning point came 3 days after the wedding. I was at work when my phone rang, and I saw it was Dad. I'd been ignoring his calls, but something made me answer this one. "Dad? Rebecca." His voice was rough, like he'd been crying. "Please, I'm begging you, just tell me what you want. What can I do to fix this?" "You can't fix it, Dad. There has to be something. The watch, Rebecca? Without it, we're going to lose the house." I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar tug of guilt and responsibility that had controlled me for so long. The urge to cave, to give them what they needed, to sacrifice my own dignity to solve their problems. "That's not my responsibility anymore," I said quietly. "You're my daughter." "Then why don't you treat me like one?" The silence stretched between us for a long moment. "I don't understand," he said finally. "I know you don't. That's the problem." I took a deep breath. "Dad, do you know that Patricia didn't invite me to her bachelorette party?" What? Or the rehearsal dinner? Or any of the wedding planning sessions that mattered? Do you know that I found out about most of the wedding details from Instagram posts? Rebecca, do you know that I spent 6 months helping plan her wedding, running errands, solving problems, coordinating vendors, and in return, she seated me in a hallway and told me I don't count? She was stressed. Weddings are... Dad, stop. My voice was firm now. Stop making excuses for her. Stop pretending this is normal. Stop acting like I'm being unreasonable for having feelings about being treated badly. Another long silence. "The watch could save our house," he said, his voice small. "And I could have saved your relationship with your daughter if you'd ever bothered to treat me like one." I hung up. That evening, Patricia showed up at my apartment. I saw her through the peephole, still in her honeymoon clothes. They'd apparently cut their trip short to deal with the Rebecca situation. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't." "Rebecca, please. I know I messed up." "You messed up?" I laughed. "Patricia, you didn't mess up. You systematically excluded me from every meaningful part of your wedding while using me for free labor. You seated me in a hallway like a piece of furniture. You looked me in the eye and told me I don't count. That's not messing up. That's deliberate cruelty." Her face crumpled. "I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" I don't know. I was stressed and you always get so emotional about things and I just wanted you to stop making everything about you." Making everything about me. I shook my head. "Patricia, I spent 6 months making everything about you. I put my life on hold to help with your wedding. I spent 3 months of my salary on a gift that would solve your financial problems. And when I asked for basic respect in return, when I asked to be treated like family instead of hired help, you told me I was making everything about me." "The seating thing was Sarah's idea," she said desperately. "She said it would be weird to have you at the family table because you don't really know Dave's family and—" "Stop!" I held up a hand. "Just stop. Even now, you're making excuses. You're blaming Sarah. You're blaming stress. You're blaming everything except your own choices." "I'm trying to apologize." "No, you're trying to get the watch back. There's a difference." She stared at me for a moment, and I could see the exact moment when she realized I wasn't going to cave, wasn't going to forgive and forget, and go back to being the convenient sister who absorbed abuse without complaint. "Fine," she said, her voice turning cold. "Keep the watch, but don't expect to be part of this family anymore." I felt something settle in my chest, a deep, final kind of peace. "Patricia," I said quietly, "I was never part of this family. That's the whole point." I closed the door, and for the first time in my life, I didn't immediately start second-guessing myself, didn't start wondering if I was being too harsh, didn't start planning how I could fix things. Because there was nothing left to fix. They'd shown me who they were, and I'd finally believed them. 2 weeks later, I opened a bank account and deposited the money from selling the watch to a collector who specialized in vintage Patek Philippe pieces. The amount was staggering. Enough to pay off my student loans, take a real vacation, and still have a substantial emergency fund. I used some of it to start therapy with a counselor who specialized in family dynamics and boundary setting. I used more of it to plan a trip to Europe I'd been dreaming about for years, but never thought I could afford, and I used the rest to create a new life for myself, one where I wasn't constantly trying to earn love from people who had decided I wasn't worth it. 6 months later, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. My cousin Jake was getting married, and the invitation was addressed just to me, not Rebecca Martinez and guest, or the Martinez family. Just me as an individual person worthy of celebration and inclusion. At his wedding, I was seated at a table with other cousins my age, people who included me in conversations and genuinely seemed happy I was there. During the reception, Jake made a point of coming over to thank me for being there, to tell me how much it meant to him that I'd come. "You know," he said, sitting down next to me during a quiet moment, "I've been thinking about Patricia's wedding a lot, about what happened." "Oh?" I should have said something that night. We all should have. The way they treated you, it wasn't okay. "It's in the past now," I said. "Is it? Because I heard from Aunt Sarah that your parents are really struggling financially, and Patricia and Dave too. Apparently the mortgage situation got really bad after—" He gestured vaguely. "After I didn't give them the watch," I finished. "Yeah, Dad mentioned they might lose the house." I felt a small pang of something, not guilt exactly, but a kind of sadness for what could have been different if they'd made different choices. "That's unfortunate," I said, "but it's not my responsibility to fix." Jake nodded slowly. "I think you're right. It's just... Dad always talks about how family is supposed to take care of each other." "Family is supposed to take care of each other," I agreed. The key word being each other. It can't just be one person doing all the giving while everyone else does the taking. "Have you heard from them at all?" "Mom texts occasionally, usually when there's some financial crisis she thinks I should help with. Dad sent a birthday card with a note about how much he misses me. Patricia..." I shrugged. Patricia made her choice. "And you? How are you doing?" I looked around the reception, at all these people celebrating love and commitment and family, but doing it in a way that included everyone, that made everyone feel valued and welcome. "I'm doing really well," I said, and meant it. "Better than I have in years, actually." "Good," Jake said. "You deserve to be happy." "Yes," I said, surprising myself with how easily the words came. "I do." As I drove home from Jake's wedding that night, I thought about the difference between the two events. Both were family celebrations. Both involved the same extended family. Both were supposed to be about love and unity and belonging. But one had been an exercise in exclusion and cruelty, while the other had been genuinely warm and inclusive. The difference wasn't the venue or the food or the music. The difference was how people chose to treat each other. I'd spent 32 years believing that love was something you had to earn through perfect behavior and endless sacrifice. I'd believed that family meant accepting whatever treatment people gave you, that blood relationships were more important than respect or kindness. Now I understood that real family, the kind worth having, was about choice. It was about people who saw your value and celebrated it, who included you not because they had to, but because they wanted to, who treated you with basic human dignity not as a reward for good behavior, but as a fundamental right. My phone buzzed with a text from Nora. How was the wedding? Better than the last family wedding you went to? I smiled as I typed back. So much better. Turns out weddings are actually fun when people want you there. Lowell, proud of you for going. I know family stuff is still complicated. It's not complicated anymore, I wrote. It's actually pretty simple now. What do you mean? I only spend time with people who treat me well. Life-changing concept, I know. Revolutionary! Love you. Love you too. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I realized something had fundamentally shifted in how I thought about myself and my relationships. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't carrying the weight of other people's problems or emotions. I wasn't responsible for managing everyone else's feelings or fixing everyone else's mistakes. I was just responsible for my own life, my own choices, my own happiness. And that responsibility, which I'd always feared would be a burden, had turned out to be the most liberating thing I'd ever experienced. 6 months after that, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Rebecca? It's Dave. I was so surprised I almost hung up. Patricia's husband had never called me before, not once in the 3 years they'd been together. Hi, Dave. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. I got your number from Jake. It's fine. What's up? I wanted to apologize, he said, and his voice was heavy with something that sounded like genuine remorse. For the wedding, for how your family treated you that night. I was quiet for a moment, not sure how to respond to this unexpected conversation. I appreciate that, I said finally. I should have said something that night. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't want to cause a scene at my own wedding, you know? But I've regretted it ever since. Dave, you barely knew me then. You weren't responsible for managing your new in-laws' family dynamics. Maybe not, but I could have been kinder. I could have made sure you felt welcome. He paused. I want you to know that I had no idea about the seating arrangement until that night. If I'd known Patricia was planning to, well, I would have stopped it. Thank you for telling me that. Rebecca, I know this might be too much to ask, but is there any chance you'd be willing to meet for coffee sometime? Just to talk? I was genuinely surprised. Why? Because you're Patricia's sister, and that makes you my family too. And I think I'd like to know you better, separate from all the drama and hurt feelings. What does Patricia think about you calling me? She doesn't know, and honestly, she probably wouldn't be happy about it. But I think that's part of the problem. I've been letting her control all the family relationships, and I'm starting to realize that's not fair to anyone. I thought about it. Dave had always seemed like a decent guy, just someone who'd gotten caught up in my family's dysfunction without really understanding it. Okay, I said. Coffee sounds fine. We met the following Saturday at a cafe downtown, and it was one of the most enlightening conversations I'd had in months. Dave told me about his own family, which was warm and inclusive and functional in ways that made me realize just how abnormal my own family dynamics had been. In my family, he said, when someone feels hurt or left out, we talk about it. We don't dismiss their feelings or call them dramatic. We try to understand and do better. That sounds nice, I said. It is. And when I married Patricia, I assumed your family worked the same way. It took me a while to realize that it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I've been trying to talk to Patricia about it, about how she treats you, about the patterns I've started to notice. But she gets defensive and says I don't understand the history, that you've always been difficult. I laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. Difficult. Yeah, that's the family code word for has feelings we don't want to deal with. That's what I'm starting to understand. Dave stirred his coffee thoughtfully. Rebecca, I want you to know that the financial stuff, the house, the mortgage problems, Patricia and I are handling it ourselves. We're not expecting you to fix it. Good, I said, because I wasn't planning to. I know, and I think that's the right choice. I've been learning a lot about boundaries and codependency since the wedding, actually. Patricia and I started couples therapy. How's that going? Slowly. She's having a hard time accepting that some of her behavior toward you has been problematic. Problematic is one word for it. I'm hoping she'll come around eventually, but even if she doesn't, I want you to know that you have an ally in me. If you ever want to be part of family events again, I'll make sure you're treated with respect. I appreciate that, Dave. I really do. But I'm not sure I'm interested in being part of family events anymore. I understand. You shouldn't have to keep subjecting yourself to treatment that hurts you. Exactly. We talked for another hour, and by the end of it, I felt like I finally understood why Patricia had fallen in love with him. Dave was thoughtful and introspective and genuinely kind. He was also someone who was learning to recognize dysfunction when he saw it, rather than just accepting it as normal. Would it be okay if I stayed in touch? He asked as we were leaving. Not to push you toward reconciliation or anything like that. Just because I think you're a good person and I'd like to have you in my life, whatever that looks like. I'd like that, I said. Over the following months, Dave and I developed an unexpected friendship. He'd text occasionally to check in, share funny memes, or just chat about work and life. Through him, I learned that Patricia was slowly starting to understand that her treatment of me had been wrong, though she wasn't ready to reach out directly yet. I also learned that my parents had indeed lost the house, moving into a smaller apartment across town. Part of me felt sad about that, but I'd done enough work in therapy to understand that their financial problems weren't my fault or my responsibility to fix. Do you ever feel guilty about the watch? My therapist asked during one session. Sometimes, I admitted, but then I remembered that they made their choices and I made mine. I chose to stop accepting bad treatment. They chose to prioritize their pride over their relationship with me. How do you feel about that? Sad, mostly, but also relieved. For the first time in my life, I'm not carrying the emotional weight of my family's dysfunction. I'm not responsible for managing everyone else's feelings or fixing everyone else's problems. That must feel very different. It does. It feels peaceful. And it was peaceful. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't constantly anxious about family drama or walking on eggshells to avoid triggering someone's anger. I wasn't sacrificing my own needs and wants to keep other people happy. I wasn't accepting crumbs of affection and calling it love. I was just living my life, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me, who included me because they wanted to, who treated me with basic human respect, not as a reward, but as a given. 1 year after Patricia's wedding, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. My name and address were written in familiar handwriting, but there was no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with just a few lines. Rebecca, I've been in therapy for 6 months now, and I'm starting to understand how badly I hurt you. I'm not ready to apologize yet because I don't think I fully grasp the extent of the damage, and I don't want to make it worse with an inadequate apology. But I want you to know that I know now. I know I was wrong. I know I was cruel. I know I lost the best person in my life because I was too proud and too scared to admit that I'd been treating you terribly. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a response. I just needed you to know that you were right and I was wrong and I'm sorry for all of it. Patricia. I read the letter 3 times, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Relief that she finally understood. Sadness for all the years we'd lost. Gratitude that she wasn't asking for anything in return. I showed the letter to my therapist the next week. How do you feel about it? She asked. Glad that she's getting help. Sad that it took losing me for her to realize she needed it. Grateful that she's not asking me to fix things or give her another chance. Do you want to respond? I thought about it for a long moment. No, not yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. What would need to happen for you to consider rebuilding that relationship? I'd need to see real change over time. Not just an apology, but actual behavioral change. And I'd need to feel confident that I could trust her not to hurt me again. That's very wise. I've learned that actions matter more than words. Patricia has spent years showing me through her actions that I don't matter to her. If she wants to change that, she'll need to show me through her actions that she's different now. And if she never does, then I'll be sad about it, but I'll be okay. I've built a good life without her. I have people who love and respect me. I don't need her validation or inclusion to be happy anymore. And that was the truth. The painful, liberating, life-changing truth. I didn't need them anymore. I didn't need their approval or their love or their acceptance. I'd learned to give those things to myself, and I'd found other people who were capable of giving them too. The watch had been sold long ago, the money invested in my own future rather than their past. The wedding that had once seemed like the end of my world had actually been the beginning of a new one, a world where I mattered, where my feelings were valid, where I was surrounded by people who chose to include me not because they had to, but because they wanted to. It had taken 32 years, but I'd finally learned the difference between family and relatives, between love and obligation, between belonging and simply being tolerated. And that knowledge had set me free.